Pull up, grab the fuel nozzle, and get ready to fuel up on trends and strategies to grow your travel center business in this episode of the Truckstops Here, brought to you by Natso. Now, here are your hosts, Amy Toner and Darren Schulte.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of the Truckstops Here. This is your host, Amy Toner, and I'm here with my co-host, Darren Schulte. Hi, Darren.
Hi, Amy.
You are listening to the Truckstops Here, Natso's podcast. Darren, tell them what we're going to talk about.
Well, Amy, amongst all the chaos and the work of just trying to keep our travel centers and truck stops open every day, I hope that many of our members are planning for the day the world reopens. I know a lot of folks are like, when is this ever going to end? I mean, this is just crazy, but it will end, and things will probably be different, believe it or not, even if we find a vaccine or we have ways to, cope with it. It's probably going to be a different world we live in. Totally.
One thing right now, it's everyone is using kiosks and app ordering and self-checkout for social distancing. What do you think will happen with those self-service things after?
I think here's actually what I will start with is there are things that are happening, like these that we have in our stores, or people have been ordering and bringing them in either pre-COVID-19 or after, or during the COVID-19 pandemic. I think some of these are going to stick regardless of what we think. They're going to become what I would call like the expectation. So for example, like the self-checkout areas where some of that stuff is, mandated, even when it's not mandated, is it going to become more acceptable? There are, situations like, we've been talking, with members about they're doing curbside checkout, and they never really thought they would ever do curbside checkout, but now they're doing it. And does that just become the standard now? Is that the expectation of the customer that you of course will have a self-service curbside checkout? So things like self-checkout, I think members, and I know this because talking to them, they're really beginning to embrace some of the things that, we've been talking about for years to them. Is they're now really truly looking at ways to get food out to the truck drivers while they're fueling. They're looking at ways to create kind of like a sonic system, for truck drivers. So when the truck drivers are fueling, they can do their orders. They're looking at that, of course, with gas. And that's not uncommon on the gas side. There's a lot of companies over the years that have kind of looked at that, along with, sort of like self-checkout. Drive-throughs traditionally didn't do well for us because customers really didn't know what they could or they couldn't purchase. But we have members rethinking that. They're looking at maybe their drive-thrus are just for the sin categories like cigarettes and beer, or maybe their drive-thru is just for their food programs. So we have folks looking at that when in the past it wasn't really a good program for us in general. As far as app ordering, more folks have asked me in the last 40 to 60 days about apps and how they go about finding companies that can provide apps for them so their customers can place orders from afar than have ever talked about it since, my time with Natso.
I could only imagine that there's going to be more and more easy solutions in that space, for the little guy.
I agree with you. I think because just think of all the small independent restaurants that didn't really have any kind of app-based program. They had a call-in program, but they didn't have an app-based program. I'm sure they, like our members and also convenience stores, are probably pounding the doors and saying, who can provide me an inexpensive, easy to execute program that my customers can understand and utilize?
Okay, let's talk about staffing. We're hearing from a lot of members that they don't necessarily need less staff, even though they have less traffic, because they're using them in different ways. So they're offering full service fueling or having them fill up beverages for people. Do you think that's going to stick around?
I actually do. I don't know how long it may last, but I do think people will reconsider how they're deploying labor. So, for example, if you're currently doing curbside pickup, that requires additional labor that when you open back up, you may not have. Now, you're able to do it today because let's say, for example, you have had to, close down a portion of your store, food service related, because now it's only serving the customer. But think about when you start the company back up, and let's say those requirements go away. You've already created an expectation for your customer for curbside pickup. So that's going to require additional labor, or inside it's going to maybe require you to rethink how you do self-service. Maybe self-service becomes much more kiosk space. As our members have gone over to Europe on these study tours with us, they've seen the Europeans embrace the kiosks. When I say kiosks, it's the vending machine a lot more than we do. So do stores inside become full of vending machines? Shakes in vending machines, yogurt in vending machines, hot food in vending machines. And then that labor that was traditionally used for whatever different parts of the store, does that get redeployed to take the food out to the truck drivers, take the food out to the curb, or take the food out to the gas? So I do think that in many cases, the proactive companies, whether they be large chains, regional players, or independents, my guess is they're looking at that already, saying, wow, is there an opportunity that's come out of the pandemic for us to capture a whole different type of customer? Customers are looking at Uber Eats and DoorDash, but maybe some of our members will start having their own deliveries, right?
Right.
Some of our members, as have some of the best chicken fried steak in the world, or they have some of the best chicken, or they have some amazing meals out there. What stops them from being the latest Jimmy John's? There's nothing stopping them. So all of a sudden they get an app, get some commercials out there, and their local businesses know that they provide these amazing, types of food. Who knows? Well, they start delivering them, and that's, again, going to require additional labor.
What about cleanliness? I think this is going to continue to be a really big deal. What do you think?
I agree with you. So I had the blessing to visit 15 travel centers in one day, right before the lockdowns really started, and I was so proud of our members. It just shows how amazing they are. Their stores and their restrooms were beyond comparison. They were unbelievable. But with that comes kind of a negative, and the negatives, the expectation has been set. So, if you were a traveler, either a car customer or a truck customer, and you go into one of our members and there's a staff member there full time, and these restrooms are just impeccable, that, again, is the new expectation. So nothing less of a super clean restroom is probably going to be acceptable to our customers. Same as the outside. The pumps were amazingly clean, and still are, I'm sure. The trash cans, the squeegees. I took pictures and shared it with staff about how clean. And some of these were it's old equipment, but they were incredibly clean. Well, that expectation has now been set. So can you go backwards? I don't think so. And I think those that do go back are going to have problems with customer experience. I think customers will shy away from those stores that go back to their old cleanliness, even if they thought it was good, right? Because the new cleanliness is incredible. It's just absolutely incredible how clean these stores are.
Yeah, totally. I think my house is the cleanest it's ever been.
There you go. And think of one other thing is, I wouldn't be surprised if you start, and we've already seen them, these in big box retailers, robots. I wouldn't be surprised in some of our larger travel centers that have a lot of room is, let's just mention TA Petro as an example, or let's mention Jubitz, so an independent and a chain. Very large locations, to start seeing robots coming through there regularly, cleaning the floors and maybe spraying disinfectant or whatever it may be. I think there's going to be a lot of technology that's pushing, members to do cleaning. Again, when I go to our local Walmart, I see the robots out there. They're up and down the aisles cleaning.
Yeah.
I used to only think they had one, but I guess they have multiple units at this particular Walmart I go, because he's got a name. I don't remember his name, but he's up and about cleaning. So I see those types of things. I mean, we think we have a Roomba at the house. Lots of people have those little automated robots. What's to stop them from being a regular provider, not a provider, but a regular site in our travel centers, going up and down our aisles cleaning? And so...
Okay, then let's talk about products. So you're predicting that truck stops and travel centers begin to offer more safety and grocery items. I know you've also talked about more local products and more sin products. What do you think? What product changes do you think we'll see?
So I'm thinking that, again, if they have the customer base to support it, you might see travel centers taking a look at the total number of SKUs they have, and maybe in some cases increasing certain categories. Like traditionally in our stores, the grocery section and the non-edible grocery sections are relatively small. But I've had told members call me saying, they brought in pallets of, water, which is common for a lot of our members, but they brought in pallets of water, gallon pallets, pallets of toilet paper, gloves, and things like that, and have had great success selling it. Now, granted, as the pandemic changes, that probably will not, be as something they bring in pallets. However, they may have started an expectation with their customers. So one of the examples I would use is my favorite little restaurant that I like to eat here in El Paso is selling those types of things. And it's an expectation. Now, granted, those are emergency items, but if they stop selling them, like, I'm low on toilet paper, I'm going there to have dinner, I'll get some toilet paper, or I'm low on a gallon of milk, I'm going to get a gallon of milk. They have a very limited SKU count. But do our members all of a sudden stop carrying sanitized gloves or sanitized solution as the pandemic changes? I think they're going to have to be very careful to look at that is, have they created a customer that is expecting that type of stuff? Other things is many of them I mentioned, cereal. They're selling more cereal than they've sold because there are going to be some customers for at least for whatever X period of time are going to feel more comfortable going into a smaller format store that has less people in it, that they can get in and out quickly. They're going to, feel comfortable. I've read and seen, at least locally here, I've seen with my own eyes, but read, where a lot of smaller grocery locations, stores throughout the United States have done quite well through this because there has been this feeling that they're smaller, they're going to be cleaner, there's less people there, and you can get in and out quickly. So I think travel centers that have maybe embraced being forward thinking and trying to get different products in their stores may have found an opportunity to really touch that local market and grow that business.
The other,
sin categories.
Sin, yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that is the funniest thing. So I have to eat some crow here. So when I'm out in visiting travel centers, I often see, especially those members that come from the C-store side of the business, they often will put in beer caves, or they'll have a big selection in beer. And traditionally in our industry, that's not a good category. We just traditionally don't sell out. And again, there's always exceptions, as we spoke about in blogs. But traditionally, that's not a good one. And cigarettes in general, we do okay, right? It's not a huge number. Well, across the board, everyone's saying, boy, my beer sales, Darren, are up triple digits. I hate you for telling me not to put in a beer cave, or, hey, cigarette sales are up double digit. I can't believe you told me to reduce those SKUs. So I've been getting a lot of needling about that, which is quite funny. So CBD seems to be booming, which was doing well prior, but it's booming. Right. Cigarette sales are booming, and beer sales are booming. And what's nice about at least the beer and the cigarette for a lot of our members is, while they're not very profitable categories for us, they do generate revenue. So for a lot of our members, that's been a nice cash flow positive for them in generating some nice revenue from those categories.
I would think that would be an area too, if you have the right products, and then people would come back at the right price, I guess. But
yeah, I agree. I think you're spot on. And it's kind of what we've just briefly talked about is, if you have found you have the ability to sell something, there's a strong chance that people will continue to come back and buy that from you. And you just have to be smart about it. Do you have the right price? Do you have the right selection? Yeah. And again, can you get them in and out quickly? But I do think there's going to be some additional new opportunities for our members that didn't exist before the pandemic.
I think I mentioned to you our little local corner store. I live in DC, so they're everywhere. And they do have a big beer selection. And my husband was going the other day, and I told him to grab this local beer that I love. And he said the guy said they couldn't keep them on the shelves because people were just buying the local beers over the I don't even know what you call it. What's non-local beers? Just
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great word. I know there's a terminology out there, but it escapes me. I guess your traditional beer, maybe?
Traditional beer, yeah.
Something like that. Other things that I think members should really consider about it, we briefly touched on this on the conversation today, but is what you hear people saying, what's the new norm? I'm not so sure I like that terminology. I'm going to say, what's the new expectation? So, we briefly talked about it related to cleanliness in the stores, whether it be showers or restrooms or the store appearance itself or the outside appearance. But what other things are going on in our stores where the expectation has, that's the new expectation. That's what people expect. I think it's going to be very important for our members to really take a hard look at that and be careful not to eliminate that. So once again, if you are a store that is doing curbside pickup, we talked about there's an increase in labor, but there's also been a set expectation created. If you are doing full service, at the pumps where you're fueling people, you've set that expectation. So I would really challenge folks to really take a hard look at what are you currently doing, and is that going to be the new expectation? Because I think customers that have really begun to like that expectation won't be coming back if you just arbitrarily get rid of it because you thought it was a COVID-19 item versus something that was really a new trend. And that could be as simple as we talked about our favorite restaurants or our favorite grocery stores that do delivery when they didn't ever used to do delivery. I like to say this one example where I go to this one restaurant. It's my favorite. I used to have to wait in line forever because it was so popular, but I would. But when COVID-19 hit, they all of a sudden started doing curbside delivery pickup. And now is if I don't feel like waiting on a Friday night for 2 hours to get my meal there, I'm no longer going to do that because I'm going to say, well, you got curbside pickup. And if they just get rid of that curbside pickup, I'm just one customer, but that's going to negatively impact my decision. Like, wow, I don't know if I want to wait 2 hours to have my meal because I didn't know any better prior to COVID-19 because they didn't offer it and I didn't know it. But now that they proved to me that they could have it, same as this local gas station, I know they come out here and they'll wash your windows, they'll bring you a coffee, and a donut, and they're doing special things to appreciate you. Well, again, not so sure I'm going to be happy when they stop offering that.
The restaurant probably makes more money off it, right? Because they don't have to pay for a waitress.
Yeah, I think there's things to look at like that. Exactly. You don't have a waitress. What are the costs associated with that? Could that just be, labor redeployed or labor, reduced potentially? Other things like when we're talking about kiosks, you think about the world we live in today, we're serving ourselves. Well, the new self-serve may not exist anymore. It may have to be where, you have to staff up to serve the customers, right? That you have to hand them a hot dog. You have to hand them pizza. And many of our members who have the food behind the counter have reported a significantly better, sales performance on food than those that didn't have it, that had it all out there on self-serve. So does your new model look, is it almost like a buffet type of food offering where you go down there and you get a piece of pizza and you get a chicken and you get a hot dog and on your way, and you're served that, along with the combined, vending machines, as we talked earlier here on today's call, was just it's your store full of vending machines. So
imagine you'd sell more healthy stuff if someone has to hand it to you, right?
Yeah, I think it opens a lot of opportunities, right, to sell different types of food that we're not even considering, that we've never really considered today, right? So
I'm more likely to pick out a pizza like stealthily by myself, but I'll ask for a salad proudly,
Good point. Absolutely right. And you'd ask about apps as well. And I know, I briefly touched on that, but I do think all of us, even the older people, that are, people that never thought about using apps or using apps for this, apps for that. And I do hope our members really start really embracing that and really think about, what's that future going to look like. And I really think if you don't have some sort of app-based ordering, if you don't have some sort of way to let people who are not physically at your store order merchandise or order products and food, I think you're going to be at a distinct advantage versus those that can do those types of things.
Future is exciting, Darren.
Well, I think it's going to be different. I think that's what we all could probably agree upon is that, we don't know what it looks like, but I think it's going to be, very, very different. One last thing I would say, for that I think is going to be very important for members of all sizes. If indeed the labor intensity increases, in other words, because of the fact that we no longer can have self-serve hot dogs, just as an example, we have to now hand hot dogs to people, hand coffee. And we start, our stores start resembling more of like the Panera Breads and the Starbucks of the world. Our members are going to have to think about other ways to reduce that labor intensity. So things such as, labels, digital labels, digital menu boards, that type of stuff, I do believe very strongly will start picking up of interest. I mean, today, the cost of going and pricing all the different labels, and then if there's a price up or a mark down, there's those types of challenges. And Europe has been way, way ahead of us for the longest time. But I do know we have members, both independent and other operators, that are beginning to look at those different types of, opportunities, especially when it comes to digital shelf tags and digital menu boards, getting rid of the static stuff that requires a tremendous amount of labor, so you can then redeploy that labor to potentially take product out to the curb.
Right. And clean.
And clean and safe.
Yep, exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Darren. We're recording this on April 30th, so who knows what will happen by the time it comes out, right?
That is correct. I think the smartest people out there, truthfully, are the ones that honestly say nobody knows. And I think those operators that are taking that approach have very open minds, are going to be ahead of the curve, because none of us know at this point. We don't know what things are going to look like. But keeping an open mind, not shutting down ideas or thought processes, I think are going to be key for long-term success.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Truck Stops Here. You can find us online at natso.com/podcast. You could also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer in the podcast, I hope you'll reach out to me at editor@natso.com. Thanks for listening.
Truck stop operators are the best. Thank you.
The Truck Stops Here was brought to you by Natso, the association representing truck stops and travel centers. Visit natso.com for more information. The Truck Stops Here is produced by Natso in collaboration with Human Factor. Producers are Amy Toner and Darren Schulte.